Hello and welcome to the Channel 17 town meeting coverage. My name is Madeline Clark and I'm a reporter with the other paper in South Burlington. I'm joined this evening by Councillor Tom Chittenden. He's running once again for the 3-year City Council seat. Our program tonight will be about 15 minutes. I'll pose a series of questions to Tom, and if you're watching from home, feel free to call in and ask a question live. The number for that is 862-3966, and you can call at any point. So without further ado, I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself, Tom.
Great. So my name is Thomas Chittenden, and I am running for a 3-year term on the South Burlington City Council. This will be my 3rd term. I first ran in 2015, filling out 2 years remaining on a 3-year term as a councilor had to step down, and then I ran again in 2017, and this will be my 3rd time. I'm running because I think I'm getting better at this and not worse. I'm also running because I care deeply about this community. I'm running for the same reasons I ran the previous 2 times. I want South Burlington to embrace its geographic proximity to the largest city in the state, and in that support responsible growth so that there's more opportunities for our kids to stay here, live here, work here, and thrive here.
Great. Well, so you started off by talking about your previous terms a little bit, so I wanted to ask, how you've exemplified your qualifications for this position.
That's a tough question. I never quite feel like I'm qualified for anything I do, but what I would say about being a city councilor, my professional role is up at the university where I'm a senior lecturer and I wear other hats. But what I've found to be most important serving an elected office is to be a good listener. So to listen more than I talk and just to reflect as much as I possibly can all of the different voices in the community. So I do that by doing the best part of this role, which is talking to people. And I hope if I haven't had coffee with you yet and you have any interest to do so, please reach out to me. I'm very Googleable, but I definitely encourage and look for any opportunity to connect with any South Burlington resident about issues that they care about.
Great. And so now I wanted to ask what your top 3 priorities for the city are should you be reelected.
Sure. Top 3 priorities for the city. I would definitely say I'm excited about some form of consolidated trash collection. So this is something that we committed resources to about a year ago in concert and coordination with Burlington. I care a lot about the environment, and I think there's something that we could do better in South Burlington, which is to apply some form of consolidated services. Now, I just want to be clear, I do not think South Burlington, nor would I support buying trucks and hiring drivers. There are other ways to regulate trash to achieve a great deal of efficiencies and lower costs for our consumers, while also reducing the amount of diesel fuel that we burn as much as the wear on our roads, also making it easier for the plow trucks to get through, and also for new mandates like Act 148 in order to collect a 3rd stream, a stream that's very problematic, biosolids and bio-waste. To be able to make that cost efficient, we have to look at ways to segregate parts of town for exclusive service for periods of time. I'm all for competition. Competition brings out the best in both people and businesses, but there are ways to do that while still achieving some of those efficiencies that come with regulated or controlled access to certain areas for periods of time for trash haulers. We already see that in Vermont and in marketplaces and across the country. It is out of step with the nation that we don't have forms of consolidated service in South Burlington. CSWD has provided a report that I should have brought it to quote it, but it's 70% plus of municipalities or residences in this country that have access to consolidated service. 70% of the residences in this country that could have access to trash hauling have consolidated service over those areas because of the benefits related to it. Other things I'd like to see happen, and we have time, right? Tell me if you want to. Okay.
Yeah,
I would like to see us spend some of our attention on the lands around the airport that have been caught in zoning limbo. As those houses were demolished, the sound from the airport, especially the airplanes taking off, are bleeding further into the neighborhood, thus affecting both quality of life as well as home values. There are ways, because the houses that were demolished used to dampen and absorb some of that sound, there are things that we could do as a city to develop our land development regulations to redirect and dampen sound waves. So I'm talking about commercial buildings. The FAA allows anything to go in that noise land, that zoning limbo, those parcels, except for residential houses. Right now, my understanding is our land development regulations only allow residential houses. I would like to see us spend more of our attention on working with those parcels so that we can redirect sound or ground noise from the airport away from our homes and neighborhood. The 3rd item, I'd like to see us find a way to work collaboratively with the school on all of the goals. I am very excited about a recreation center, and it's kind of a running joke. I would love a pool, okay? So I think there are smaller communities in Vermont that have municipal pools. You can look at Essex Junction. St. Albans has one, and they're voting on a bond. Outdoor pools, compared to other projects, are very inexpensive. I know that there are still millions of dollars, but relative to other projects, they are attainable. Indoor pools, much more expensive. I, as a councilor representing the interests of our taxpayer, would not support a indoor pool that only South Burlington would pay for, because you're talking $15, $20 million. I would want regional coordination. I'd want to get entities like the University of Vermont, other athletic agencies in the area to get behind a large aquatic center. But an outdoor pool, we can afford that. We just need to get the right discussions to happen.
Sure, and so it's interesting you bring that up. I know right now, kind of in the background, the city is working on a proposal for an indoor recreation center, which does not include a pool at this time. Is that something you'd support, and is it something you think the taxpayers can handle at this time when we have a proposed increase to the city budget, the school budget, and a proposed school bond article for a new building there?
Great question. So I want to split it into a few things. I on council over the last 5 years, we have had multiple presentations showing how little per capita we spend on recreation space compared to peer municipalities. So per person, we spend a very small amount on recreation facilities for our municipality. I have 3 small children. These 3 kids who are watching right now, hi guys, you don't need to ask, I can attest personally to how hard it is to find fun things to do with them in the winter time. Now that Pizza Putt is closed, it's even harder because there's no place to take them on Thursday nights. So to answer your question, I support asking the voters for a recreation center. It's currently estimated between 15 and 20 million. We're looking out, it's been a long known need. Okay, some people push back on need, but a documented desire for this community that at the very minimum, I want to ask the voters what they think and whether or not this fits within their pocketbooks. So I support asking the voters, and me as an individual voter that would vote on that bond with my 3 small kids and seeing what I've seen, I will vote yes on a recreation center. As for the pool, I'm very excited that the plan has this expansion area. So I'm 42 years old. I'm hoping within my lifetime, South Burlington will see a pool, and I'm a very patient guy, so I can wait.
All right. And earlier you also brought up your interest in helping the environment however we can. And I know right now a big question on South Burlington residents' mind has been the balance of open space and development in the city. We're in interim zoning right now, and I wanted to get your thoughts on all of that and what you think the city should be, I guess, shifting towards.
Sure. So I voted against enacting interim zoning. And I just want to comment on the framing of your question, which is a key point I've made at multiple council meetings. Climate change is the biggest threat to humankind, and I absolutely support doing everything we can to address that emergency. I am not convinced that interim zoning and suppressing development in South Burlington will help that cause. We are not an island. If we push the development or prevent it from happening in South Burlington next to the largest city in the state, Burlington, Vermont, it's just going to go further into the countryside. Heinsberg, Shelburne, Richmond, St. Albans, Milton, and that's going to drastically increase our transportation or CO2 emissions, which if you look at our carbon footprint for the state, that's 1/3 of what we're generating. So if we want to embrace climate change sensible policies, we need to embrace our geographic proximity and allow development to occur near our city services that already exist, so that's not additional expansion of those, to stop towns like Williston from having to build up their infrastructure south of 89, thus spreading and creating a larger transportation grid with more commuting times and more wear on our transportation grid. So I do not support interim zoning. I also think it's unfair to the landowner, and I'm concerned with some of the motivations for interim zoning, and I've been against it and still am.
Sure, and another issue that came up this fall that I believe you were against was the elimination of minimum parking standards, and I was looking to get your thoughts on that.
So I do not want more parking in South Burlington. We've got plenty of parking, and I fully support reducing parking. I just think that we did it in a haphazard, reckless way. And I use those terms cautiously, and I'm not casting shade. I don't mean to cast shade. But to eliminate minimum parking standards citywide just made no sense. I said multiple times, a compromise I could get behind is do it in the TIF district. So where we're focusing high density development, okay. And that could also support what we had been planning for, which was a possible parking garage in that area. But to do it citywide, I already hear from neighbors. We've had it on Timber Lane, on Hayes Ave. We now have it on Brookwood Drive, where commercial entities are pushing their parking into residential neighborhoods. Burlington's wrestled with this for years. They have residential parking. We don't currently have that. Parking has a cost, and now we have basically said to commercial developers they don't need to carry that cost, and it gets shifted onto the taxpayer or to the residents in reduced quality of life, not being able to put their trash cans out, not being able to drive down their road, not being able to plow their streets. So parking has a true cost, and I do want to reduce the amount of parking, but I do not support a blanket removal of the standards for just commercial too. Burlington has been focusing on reducing these standards for residential, I understand, to address the affordable housing. We lowered it a little bit, but I still also don't understand why it was a high priority during interim zoning. I feel like there were so many other things we were focused on that parking seemed to jump the line, and I'm not quite sure why.
Sure, absolutely. And while we're on this theme of development, we have a mall right now that's largely empty, and the library will be moving out in the next couple of years. And wanted to get your thoughts on maybe how we can revitalize that space.
So definitely, I expect the free market to really address this. I think we have a role in working collaboratively with Heather Trombley and I forgot the name of the owning company, something Partners, Keypoint, and working with them as they come up with new plans for that area. So committing planning resources. I will say this: retail is suffering. Sears is going out, but people still go out. We might not buy stuff from the store as much, but I like to take the kids and the family and guests to go out of the house and do things. So there are ways. When I grew up in South Burlington back in the good old days, there used to be a movie theater where Higher Ground is, and also Barnes & Noble used to be a movie theater. One thing I've mentioned to Heather Trombley, the general manager of the U-Mall, many times is I would love a movie theater in that part of town again, like an IMAX maybe, where Sears is. I just think that'd be a great indoor activity that the area could support, and movie theaters are, what I understand, and I haven't read into it recently, are doing pretty well across the country.
Sure. And then shifting gears and looking at the budget proposal that you and your fellow councilors passed, it's a 2.98% increase. And I was wondering, why you support this budget and why you think residents should support it as well.
I think it's sensible. We sharpened our pencils, as my good friend Pat Nowak used to say, and we did cut from the budget about $500,000 from the capital improvement plan. I would like more money for paving. I think our roads need and demand the attention, but the costs of living keeps going up every year for our contracts, which a large part of our budget is already previously negotiated. So we cut where we could, but we are supporting and funding our pension. We, compared to other municipalities in the state, are well funded for what our pension demands. So we are taking responsible and steady decisions to prepare this, to put our city on financial fair, good grounding. And I really want to credit Tom Hubbard and Kevin Dorn. They have done a phenomenal job running the city of South Burlington, especially when it comes to managing our budget and proposing what we've ultimately approved.
Sure. And so the school district has a $209.6 million joint middle and high school with an athletic complex, and I was wondering if that's something you'll be supporting this town meeting day.
So I first ran for office in 2015, and back then my uncle Bob Chittenden was still alive. Bob served on city council back in the 90s, and I went to go see my uncle. And I said, Bob, I'm thinking about running for city council, and what's your advice? The first thing he said to me was, Tom, if you're running for city council and somebody asks you about the school, don't answer it. Say you're not running for the school board, but I am never one to run from a question. And what I will say is the following. I am voting yes on this school bond. I have 3 personal reasons. Their name are Samantha, Amelia, and Thomas, and they're watching right now, that I am definitely going to vote yes on this. I followed the presentations last summer. I'm voting yes as one community member of 10,000. As I look at my priorities, I don't want to put the first place I want to put my money is in my kids, in our kids, and our future kids, and my grandkids. So I'm a yes. That being the case, I would say this. I think there are ways that I hope that as we go forward, we'll look for efficiencies. For example, the rec center. I would love to find ways that we could collaborate with the city more so that we can find collaboration opportunities to address this. If it does pass, that is going to be a huge tax increase. I could only support a rec center if this passes, if in fact we continue to support strong growth in the city to grow our grand list, because municipal resources like rec centers can be offset through additional growth of the tax base to spread that burden across a larger population.
All right, and as a last question, what would you hope to look different at the end of your term?
I would like a pool in the city of South Burlington to bring my kids to on a regular basis. I joke. I am sensitive to the taxpayer, and when we make decisions, I am definitely looking at the numbers. So I would always want to do that in a very fair way, and I only support an outdoor pool if the city's going to pay for it. An indoor pool, we'd have to have other sources. I'd also like to see something. I think we have, and I've said this before, we have spent too much of our limited, scarce attention resources on studying the southeast quadrant and undeveloped lands in South Burlington. I would like us to cast our gaze on other areas like the airport. I think we could do more for that area. I also would like to look at Shelburne Road more. I'm excited about the Kmart shopping plaza coming in. I'd like to see us work with public transportation to provide more park and rides. But there's only so many hours in the day for our very talented staff. I'm thinking of Paul Connor. For Paul Connor to spend his attention on these things, we can't keep overstudying the southeast quadrant because of the concerns about development, which I support responsible, smart growth to fill out our grand list and to fill out the southeast quadrant where it still makes sense. I do not want to plow over every square inch of South Burlington. We have the Natural Resource Protection Zone. I fully support protecting our natural resources for the critters, for the riparian waterways. I just still support responsible, smart growth in South Burlington.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Tom, and I want to thank everyone for watching. This is Channel 17's coverage of town meeting, and I'd like to remind you to go out and vote on March 3rd between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at your regular polling place. Thank you.